Started. All right, thank you again, everybody, so much for joining us. We've got Fern here to talk about container security or adding container security to your infrastructure. So really excited for this presentation. Got the notes document updated for you. I'll drop it into the chat, but I want to go ahead and turn it over to Fern.
Awesome, thanks, John. Yeah, so today I'm going to be covering container host security. And pretty much I'm just going to be going over how it works within GitLab, how to set it up, and I'll do a little quick demo and then have a Q&A session. So just make sure everyone's pretty well caffeinated for this. I'm on my third cup of coffee right now.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers. Well, yeah, you can't see it with the background now. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we can start with the presentation. Let's see. And what ends up happening is, since I have it on the second screen, what I'm going to do is I can also switch my camera. Let me get a side view. Hold on. Just got to make it as normal as possible. Okay. So share screen, and there we go. Okay. So leveraging container host security with GitLab. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what exactly is container host security. So what container host security does is it provides intrusion detection and prevention and monitors our container host to see if anything suspicious or weird is going on, and then it can either block or alert on that activity. So one thing to note is that we use Falco, which is a container host tool for monitoring the container host, and we leverage that. It's a CNCF project, and it's customizable via rules. And I'll get into that in a second, but just to kind of show you the flow, you perform requests using kubectl on the kube API server. And what that does is it modifies our cluster, whether it be adding deployments or adding our application, exposing it. And what that does is it creates audit logs. And these audit logs are sent over to Falco, which we install within our GitLab cluster. So it'll be an application running within our GitLab-Managed-Apps namespace. And what it'll be doing is it'll be looking at all these audit logs within all of our within our Kube API server. And what's going to happen is there's going to be certain rules that it applies. So it searches all the logs, and then let's say it finds a log where a directory is being created, and one of the rules says, hey, alert if a directory is being created. Then what it'll do is it'll go ahead and generate that alert and then let us know, like, hey, there's something that's not supposed to be happening on the system, or there's something that we're monitoring for on this system, and we've detected that this has happened. So then we can go ahead and send alerts to whatever medium we want. So we can send alerts to, let's say, PagerDuty. We can send alerts to the GitLab dashboard, which I'll show you a little bit about that later today. That's something that hasn't been implemented, but it's in the roadmap. It can send alerts. It can send things to a file. It can send syslog. It can send things to Prometheus. Pretty much, it's highly configurable and can be done, in any way that you need. So just to give you a couple of examples of what the actual rules are, some example rules are, hey, let's alert when a shell is run in a container. So it could be something malicious happening where someone got into a container that they're not supposed to have access to. Maybe it's a container that no one should have access to, and it should all be deployed through the CI/CD pipeline. Well, if a shell is running in it, could be some type of malicious intent. Someone got in that wasn't supposed to, so we can alert on that, and we can provide even more details on, what exactly the shell script that was running is. Writing to directories that like /dev, which shouldn't be written to, unexpected connections, non-authorized namespace changes, and so much more. One of the fun ones is a process that other than Skype or WebEx that tries to access your camera. So it pretty much runs on the container host. This is something that can probably even run just on your, your own Mac and detect, hey, is there a Skype or WebEx session happening? Someone using my camera and I don't even know. So, but the thing is, this is containerized and deployed on our Kubernetes cluster, and we'll alert on these things. So how do we install this on our cluster? So I don't know if y'all have known, but before we used to install things via GitLab-Managed-Apps. So there was different ways of installing things. There used to be a UI where you would go in and you would actually install the applications via the UI. So you'd click install. So that has been removed as of GitLab 14.0. And then there's also another way of deploying applications, which is through a YAML, through GitLab-Managed-Apps, and that has been deprecated. And not only has it been deprecated, but it's actually going to be removed in GitLab 15.0. So there is a migration process to moving everything over to the new standard, which is going to be the cluster management project template. And I'll go a little bit into depth on that, but in the future, I'm going to make a video on migrating. So I'll make a little video on showing how to migrate these applications, since it has a lot to do with the GitLab Protect stage. But for now, I'll just give a little bit of details on what the actual cluster management project is. So let me just go ahead and show you. So the GitLab Managed Apps. So this is like the old way of doing it. You would include a template to the GitLab CI YAML, and then you'd add a config.yaml under GitLab Managed Apps in the config. And then you just pretty much put the name of each application and put installed equals true. And what ends up happening is for Falco, it looks something like this. You just say Falco installed equals true, and then you can add a bunch of other data. So now this has changed. And the way that it has changed is, I can show you a before and after. So if you look at the before, right, you would have GitLab Managed Apps, you had a Falco, you'd have config.yaml, you'd have, you'd express everything that needs to be installed. So you'd say Falco installed equals true, and you'd set the cluster type. And then you'd have specific Falco information here in this directory. And within the GitLab CI YAML, you would add this managed cluster applications app, and then that would deploy Falco into our cluster. But the way that that's changed is now you'd have within the GitLab CI YAML, it would just be the regular YAML where you'd have this supply stage. And you'd have this helm file.yaml, which will tell you exactly what we want to install. So I would uncomment this right here. And then that'll go ahead and run the apply job, and it'll apply Falco within the Helm file. And then furthermore, there's applications, and we can go to Falco, and then here we can configure what values we want, like the standard Helm way. And we would also configure a Helm file to just give more information on where the actual chart is housed and where the Helm file is housed. And this is also done for customizing different things. So this is something new within GitLab that's just been brought up. So, I'll be adding more videos and more details on this as, it progresses. But now to go back, and if you want, you can start adding your questions to the document, and I'll review that document after this presentation, and then start answering things one by one. So custom rules in Falco. So you saw some of the rules that are already on there and already default, but what if we want to add something specific? So Falco has some guidelines as to the syntax of how you write rules. So for example, this is a rule where we're going to detect just any directory being created. So you see I had the rule, I had a description of it, and you can see that the condition for this rule is make dir. So it's anytime the make dir command is run, which creates a directory. And then what it'll do is it'll output this message here. So file below and known directory open for writing. So, and it'll provide us information on the username, the exact command that was run, the file, its parent, and a whole bunch of other information. Now, this is all syntax that you would have to read from the Falco documentation, so you can structure it yourself and make your own rules. You can set the different priority as to how you want it to alert. It could be an error, a warning, info, and then you can give it a tag. And then for more information on this, you can see what each thing means. So you can set the different priorities, you can set exceptions, you can set different tags. And there's different tags that you can apply. So there's just more information, and this is what you use tags. So you can use T argument to disable rules having a given tag. So there's just a whole bunch of information that you can do and just highly configure Falco. You would have to, when writing your own rule, you would have to go through this and just kind of see exactly how you'd want to write a rule. And this is more Falco specific. So, and I'd be happy to answer any questions later on. So now that, let's say we have Falco installed, let's say we have a new rule for detecting a new directory. So what do we do with that? What do we do with all that information? Like, what happens when a rule is detected? Like, why do we care? Well, what we do is we create alerts. So that way, if any of those rules are ever broken, we can alert something and have some action performed. So, different ways of alerting, the standard out, to a file, you can alert to syslog, you can alert to a program, to an HTTPS endpoint, to a client via gRPC. So pretty much I can call anything. An example would be I can actually, send myself an email of, hey, an alert was triggered, That would be a very simple way of doing it. But I can also go to Slack maybe and just have a Slack channel where every time something is, anytime any rule is broken, Slack will just message me and just, pop up and show rules. So I actually put the wrong link on here, but, and I'll just change that right now. For guidelines on writing alerts. So if I look at how to write an alert, you can see that there is file output. So I just add the syntax and this will tell me what file name to go to, syslog, program output. So this is the one that I wanted to show y'all, which is I can set a program that I actually want to run whenever a rule is triggered. So here you can see that just someone sending a mail to someone that there was a Falco notification. So it's just very simple, but this can, get as complex as you like it to get or get as configured as you want it to get. But pretty much what will happen is, like, anytime a rule is broken, it'll just mail you Falco notification. So you'll get probably a billion emails depending on your cluster. And same thing with Slack. So you can configure this to Slack. So I couldn't demo this because I'm not a Slack admin, so I didn't have access to creating the application, but at some point I'll probably request that. But what you can do is you can just get the JSON output and then just post that to the Slack service, make a little bot or something or a webhook that anytime that a rule is broken, it'll post to Slack. So this little bot will go ahead and post. So these are kind of some of the ways where you can see output and you can kind of work with configuring this. And so now what I can do is, and this is a pretty funny picture actually. This is the guy, he's at the beach, but he's looking at his TV. Right, so now let's just go into a little demo and just let me just show you how this works. So can you still see my screen? Okay. So if I do kubectl get pods -n GitLab-Managed-Apps, you'll see that based off of my deployment, I have 3 pods running with Falco on it. Now, let's go to my namespaces. So this is what I deployed. So if I do kubectl get pods in this namespace, so this is everything that I have deployed on my project. So I'm going to exec into this file, kubectl exec. To this pod, I mean, okay, so you can see I'm in this pod. Let me just. Okay, so now I'm in this pod, and I'm gonna go into the /dev directory, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start making dir okay, dir. I'm just gonna start making a bunch of different directories. Okay, so now I exit. And now let's go and look at my logs of Falco. Let me see, I don't know if I can pipe this to JQ. Okay, so these are all the logs for Falco. So I just made it nice in this JSON format, but now when I'm looking at the different logs, you can see that there's been some triggers. There's a lot of different notices on different things, but there's been some triggers where you can see that there was a new directory detected. So detected new directory, and that's an issue. So that's something that I would have to examine. So error file below a known directory opening for writing. So you can see that there's issues with all these new directories that are being created. So I would have to add more information, like my whatchamacallit, my rules are not configured completely properly where it's showing like the actual file and everything happening, but you can see that there are errors being detected of files being created. So detect a new directory. You can see that there's been lots of alerts on all these directories created. So I created a bunch of different directories, and now they're being shown as detected. So you can see that the rules are being broken within this instance. I don't know if I can grep. Maybe I can grep. Let's see if it'll show the files. No, yeah, so it won't show the files. I would have to add more to the actual configurations to show what actual files are being created, but at least I can see that there's some tampering being done on the system. So I can always just go and verify that, but you can see that there are errors that are applied because a file has been created. So, so yeah. Now I want to show something else. I want to show the alerts, but let me see. Let me get back into. This. Okay, so yeah, let me see. I think there was a file that I had. Let me. Yeah, I think that was it right for now. Okay. Yeah. So now you saw like the alert actually being triggered. So I don't. You saw the rule actually being broken, but there's no. I don't have any alerts set up right now. Just because I couldn't get it to work on Slack, but I'll show in more detail kind of alerts actually being sent over to a file. That's something I have to play around with a bit more. But just to kind of give you an example on what alerts are going to look like in the future, I wanted to show you something in the roadmap, right? Where you can see here's the container host security. So there's going to be plans for support for the Kubernetes agent. There's going to be exporting logs to a SIEM, CHS statistics, policy management via UI, and default policy set. And one of the things where we want alerts to be shown is going to be kind of like this. So if I go into my project and I go into security and compliance and I go into threat monitoring, this is where the alerts would be displayed. So anytime that an alert is actually triggered, they would actually be displayed here as, you know, the date and time with the name, the event, the incident, and you can assign different people to it and provide the status, and you can actually manage that status. So eventually, this is where we'd like to see the alerts. Right now, they're only there for container network security. And anytime a network policy is broken, you'll see the alerts on here. But we want to get that for container host security as well. That's one of the pieces that we're trying to put in. And then also have statistics for the container host security as well. But right now, everything is just within container network security, but we want to have everything for container. We want to have the same things for container host security, for container network security applied here. So you would also see, instead of just seeing network policies, we'd also want to see actual rules here and have, you know, definition between everything and have it done in the UI, so you don't have to go back and forth between the YAMLs and the GUI. So with that being said, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to start taking questions now. And let me open that document and we can just kind of go over different things. So let me just change this. All right. So let me open up that document. So one question, in your introduction, you mentioned track and prevent. From your demo, it seems that Falco is alerting when a vulnerability happens. Any way to be more proactive? So one reason why you may not want to block right away is because you don't know what type of, what it's going to cause to your system, right? You don't want your service to be completely stopped. So what I've done here is I put it in just view mode, where I'm just making sure that we're just alerting on different things. So then we can go ahead and take these steps and further the security of our items. So a lot of times what you know, different security teams would do is they'd actually run it and see what the common things that happen are. And then from there, enforce more policies to actually stop things from happening, to actually block things. So I know how to do this in container network security. I know how to write network policies which block, and within the web application firewall. Now with Falco, I'd have to look more into details. I know that is something that it does support, but I'd have to, you know, I have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, thanks. I was writing the question. Yeah, the idea, it was the same from a firewall perspective. You start logging what is happening, and then you define your final set of policy. There is a specific moment where you are going in production that you want to prevent those kind of actions that just receiving an alert. So I wanted to investigate if we have, if we know something about that stage. But thanks for the demo and the answer.
Yeah, we had it for the WAF, but which we've deprecated, which was based off of ModSec. So I mean, it's a good point to have something, you know, something alternative to that, to be able to block. I think right now most customers won't want to block; they'll just want to monitor and then kind of enforce more strict security policies after their findings. So I think for right now, this is something definitely viable, but I'll keep working with y'all, you know, to try to figure out more as to like how to actually perform the blocking.
Thank you.
Hey, Fernando, I got the next one. By the way, I love your videos, man. You're great stuff. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
the,
thank you.
Sure, man. Quick question: competition. Do our competitors offer stuff as far as this goes, or are folks usually using just the a free open source version of container host security? Do we know of anything that's bundled with anything else that we can compete against?
There's different things. There's lots of different companies that actually compete. What's the name that actually put different tools on Kubernetes to monitor? So Sysdig are the producers of Falco. So that's one of their, they offer more solutions around that.
Okay.
And then there is what's that observability? I can't remember the name of that company now. New Relic. So New Relic also has features like that, which can observe everything going on. It's pretty much a lot of companies that log different things and then perform events depending on what's found in the log. So like there's another one called LogDNA. There's a bunch of different tools. Now they mainly offer logging solutions and like debugging type stuff and searching through logs. So it'd be mainly those companies, because you can alert based off of what's found in the logs.
Yep.
So they don't offer some complete solution like GitLab. They'll mainly focus on that one part.
Okay.
And yes, Splunk as well. Tabo just put that. So Splunk does this as well. So there's a lot of competitors that we have that do this.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And if you want any links to these projects, I mean, so one more thing to add that I wanted to add is within technical marketing, we're actually working on like different workshops that people can go through independently, and that you'll be able to send your customers on how to do these different steps. Now, we do have to modernize them a little bit before we release them because of the changes within the GitLab-Managed-Apps and different things like that. But we will provide different workshops and different tools so that way customers can go step by step and learn how to use these tools, or anyone within GitLab that wants to learn. So those are a few of the things that we're working on, and just having applications that anyone can use. So I'm going to type it in right here in this chat, but just going there to the DevSecOps, you can find some of the stuff that I've used today. And but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much yeah, what I have.
Thank you so much for the great presentation, Fernando. Does anybody else have any other questions? I don't see any in the document.
So yeah, no more questions, then, thank you all for attending, and you can always reach out to me on Slack or reach out in the tech marketing channel if you need any more information. And then I'm going to try to do a migration video on migrating from GitLab-Managed-Apps to this new project management cluster. And if I can get some Slack access, I'll happily post the video on, sending these alerts and stuff. So.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Great.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Fernando.